Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I hear you doing a new book. What is it all about?
Yes. The opportunity of putting things in book is really quite interesting and unique because it enabled me to put together all the themes of my work over the years in different parts of the world. But also, if you're writing a book, you have the luxury to say a little bit more. So I try to explain some of my concepts in deeper ways. For example, let's take the idea of trauma. Everybody's talking about trauma. And in effect, we're using the word trauma in so many different contexts. So I'm trying to elaborate on that, the different meanings of trauma. For example, when we're talking about a society's traumatized, we do not mean that every single person is suffering from PTSD.
Right.
For example. I mean, so there are things like that. That's one.
Right.
Thing. The other thing is the key definition of the term involuntary dislocation, which is the title of my book. Trying to look at what is the uniqueness of the phenomenon in terms of what happens when people involuntarily lose what they consider home.
Right.
So if we look at it from that way, from that perspective, we can see that in a sense migrants, refugees, street children, that is the focus of Hukonia, etc., are sharing something in common. And it's important for us to see the similarities as well as differences. And of course also some other things that are of my own interest about classic perspectives, for example, on how in the ancient Greek theater they were dealing with comparable issues that we're dealing now, talking about public tragedies. How were they presenting them? And for example, Aristotle's way of discussing the finer ways of talking about painful things, but not too much in order to traumatize people. There is so much wisdom that we forget today when we're involved in our own current theories. So a book enables you to put things in wider perspective. So I've been enjoying working on that.
Right. Well, we look forward to reading it, in fact.
Thank you.
So, and when do you think it's going to come out?
Well, if anything, actually, I have written much more. So now I'm pruning it to finish it. So hopefully next year.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, super. Well, we look forward to it.
Thank you.
We are in this wonderful conference, Breaking the Cycle.
Yes.
First time in Africa. Really hearing about all the experiences that all these organizations, led in this case by railway children, have to say and to share about the way they deal with violence and prevention of violence. And so I would like to hear your opinion about the conference, and also, what you think we could have done to do it better, or other areas where we could possibly have, focused more.
Yeah. Well, it is so important that the Hukonia approach is now applied in a much more substantial way and in a more systematic way in Africa. And the collaboration with the railway children from the UK is quite unique and enables this fantastic combination, this kind of unique amalgam there. I can't think of anything that you can do better, but for me it is really very important because, as we know, the problems of Africa are quite unique and serious, and a lot of organizations, let's face it, work without much commitment. They come, do one little project, they disappear. That's not the way that either Hukonia or railway children have been working with serious commitment and applying methods and ways of working on the ground, sort of in reality, with people that had a lot of incredible applicability and effectiveness when they were applied in other contexts. And it's about time, I would say. It's really incredibly timely that this conference now is coming to Africa, engaging with government as well as non-governmental organizations, etc., and spreading this seriousness of the approach in these contexts. And I can only foresee further positive developments out of this, because the participants here, from what I've seen so far, are exceptional. There are people who are devoted in the field, and they have a good track record. So it's fantastic. I feel privileged that I've been considered worthy enough to be invited.
No, we thank you very much for coming. I know that it's been difficult for you. Just coming for one day in and out to Tanzania is not a short flight, but we're really appreciative. And, we think, we hope that with all this, as we say, the turbulence in the world, where there's more and more violence, that this methodology can be applied in a wider context, and that this could be a contribution also for the Global Alliance for Violence Against Children, because in fact what we're seeing also is that there is this amazing coincidence that both Tanzania and Mexico are really the two pathfinder countries, apart from Sweden and countries in Asia. So I think there's a connection here that is wonderful to make, and I hope that we'll all benefit, and the children of the world will benefit from all this knowledge and all the sharing of information.
Well, all I want to add to that is that for me, what I was attracted to this approach is the uniqueness of trying to work with these people, that they are struggling with everything from physical, social deprivation, as well as abuse and all of that. And the uniqueness of this approach, which fits exactly with my approach and with the book, is working then synergically, working in synergy with their strengths. So we do not pathologize further these people. We do not, yes, they have been victims of circumstances, but we prevent them with this work, we prevent them from sinking more into a victim identity.
Absolutely.
And this is the unique approach that excites me and makes me feel that I can give as much as I can to develop this approach further. It is this work, not ignoring the negative effects of this abuse and deprivation, but at the same time building on the strengths, identifying these strengths and building on them in conjunction with the difficulties, because usually the field is polarized. Some people are working exclusively with the trauma and they don't see anything positive, and other people are talking only about the positives and they're not talking with the trauma. And I think this is the unique approach that I've, my approach, so to speak, that I developed over the years, that coincides with the Bukonia approach. That's why I think it's a very good connection.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that we'll be meeting very soon in continuing to push the methodology and all the work that the people that are attending this conference are really doing all over Africa and in Latin America. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Pleasure.
very much.
Handshake.